instances of paranormal phenomena have been reported in this desolate place. Events that may reflect the area's tragic past.
This is hell on earth.
Eastern State Penitentiary was a house of pain.
We had everything here from steel doors to insects.
Nobody right behind me was so push.
Had to feel
I had my
something.
15 minutes on TV, whatever. Things have been pushing me the whole time I'm here.
A regular person,
I'm out.
The first responders they got so distraught and so
They were raped, sodomized.
like a hellhole.
his spirit is still here.
Just pure evil. People don't know what goes on behind these walls.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to Other Dangers Podcast, Episode 1. We have a very good one for you today. We're going to be talking about Eastern State Penitentiary, one of the holy grails in the paranormal and in history. It is just a marvel in every aspect of the word. And I am Ken James. With me is Jason McKittrick, and we're going to pass it over to him and have him lay out a little bit of the past and history of Eastern State.
Good evening, folks. So Eastern State Penitentiary, I mean, if you're familiar with the world of the paranormal, this should be no new territory for you. But, this is the first penitentiary in the United States. Literally, if you've ever seen pictures of it, it looks like a castle. It was designed to intimidate. Just a short little history, don't want to get too dry, but keep it, short for you guys. But located in Philadelphia, it was constructed in 1829, and it used this unique wagon wheel construction, which was designed to keep prisoners in solitary confinement for their entire stay. But this is a flawed system, and it eventually drove prisoners insane, which we will talk about. Notable inmates include Al Capone, who had his own paranormal encounter while he stayed there, and a very interesting cell, and notorious bank robber Willie Sutton, who made an unsuccessful escape attempt in 1954. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Just the long and short of it. He dug this tunnel underneath the walls from his cell, him and three other inmates, and it took them over a year to dig this hole, and they get out to the sidewalk, and they're caught immediately.
Didn't one get away and one or two got away?
For an hour or so. Yeah. He went somewhere. I should have researched further on that. But
I think he went home. He went home and probably didn't even change his clothes.
He was just sitting on the couch, had a sandwich. What?
Oh no, I'm supposed to be. Where am I supposed to be? I don't know. What are you talking about?
It didn't work out for him. But it was open for 142 years of operation, and the prison housed over 75,000 prisoners during its lifetime, which is pretty incredible. It was finally closed in 1971 and was completely abandoned until the late 1980s, which is interesting. During that time, from the 70s to the late 80s, a forest actually grew on the inside of the prison. There was literal forests in the cell blocks, which is really interesting. You can actually see some remnants of that today. If you go in some of the cells, you see really deep roots going through a lot of the structural elements of some of the cells. So the place is a standing ruin. I actually think that's one of the terms they use to describe the place.
And they actually highlight that in one of their attractions in their haunted house. They, the forest area, which they kind of make it its own kind of entity.
Right. Ken is mentioning it's world famous and truly is Halloween attraction, the Terror Behind the Walls, which they hold every year, I guess, except for this year. Fuck you, COVID. Yeah. It's pretty fantastic. I guess maybe next year, if you haven't gone, make some plans. It's one of the best ones. I mean, they pull out all the stops. It's a great time. And Ken and I have been together, three or four times we went?
At least around there. Yeah.
So Eastern State Penitentiary entered the National Historic Landmark Registry in 1965, and is now a museum and can be toured daily. And that's the factual part of this this episode.
Yeah, well, the factual part of that too, like one of my friends actually ended up moving right down the street. He was
nice.
living, he moved up. I forget. He was bouncing around. He was the manager at a place I worked at, and like I would go hang with him, drink at his place, we'd chill, and like every time I'm like, yo, can we just go walk down there and hang out outside?
Sure. No, the first time I ever visited the place was with your older brother. Shout out to Chris. Hey, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
He took me up there. It was closed. It was like middle of the night. I want to say it was like probably close to midnight. And you come around this. It's in this unassuming neighborhood up in northern Philly, and you just come around the corner, and there's this castle. It's the only way to describe it. It's a medieval castle, and I was like, oh my god. And I just couldn't believe it. And, Chris was telling me some stories, some things about that happened there historically, the escape attempts. And then, oh, yeah, and by the way, this place is crazy haunted.
Yeah, so. I remember it when I was younger. I was always into the paranormal. I always loved haunted houses, but I could never go in. I would get so scared of that part of it. And then I think I was like 12. And like I'd always like go, and then I would like, ugh. And my mom's like, "Oh, for your birthday this year, they're doing a haunted house in this prison." And I was like, "Oh, what? Like, mom? like,
mom?
Yeah, I'm far. Yeah, mom, I'm far. I'm far from the man I am now with being so into this." But like, she was like, "Yeah, I got us all tickets. It was a limited affair back then and it was the first year they did the haunted house and." We went, and I was like, Chris is my brother Chris. Shout out to Chris. I was at his hip like the whole time. And yeah, even then some kind of weird stuff happened. And I barely knew the history. I didn't even know there was a prison. But like you said, you turn that corner.
Yeah, it comes out of nowhere.
Castle. You're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Back to what I said at the top. Talking about the notable inmates, a lot of people hear about the Eastern State Penitentiary because of Al Capone. Now, he had a very short stay there. It was only about a year. And he had a cell, and he was allowed to basically dress it up like a hotel room. He had a radio, he had a bed, he had very fine furnishings on the inside. However, during his stay, he was allegedly he was being haunted by the spirit of one of the men killed during the St. Valentine's Day massacre, a guy named Jimmy Clark. Guards reported that they heard him yelling things like, "Leave me alone" and "Get out," which is interesting. But also, if you know his history, he probably also is still suffering from syphilis, which drives you insane. So I don't doubt he saw things there, but
Well, also there was another story too from one of his bodyguards who apparently, I think it was during the move to Alcatraz, where he was going, I guess, to get some of the furnishing or something like that, and he experienced a presence. And he later came out and said, I thought it was all bullshit until this happened, and now I believe that it wasn't just the syphilis.
Al Capone, it wasn't just the syphilis. T-shirts next week, folks.
Yeah.
We're going to be the T-shirt podcast.
Yeah.
Eastern States appeared on Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters, BuzzFeed Unsolved, and our favorite, MTV's Fear.
Ow!
Shout out to MTV's Fear. What a show. But I don't know why after Eastern State Penitentiary, they started calling the locations other names, like aliases. Why did they do that?
I think maybe, all right, so the first season, they had that, what was the first prison? Like, this is the scariest prison in the country. And then it was season 2, like episode, whatever the Eastern State one was. And they opened the episode. They're like, in season 1, we thought we found the scariest prison in the country. We were wrong. And it's like, yeah, you were. And I guess the outcry for that,
right.
And also probably a lot of lawsuits from the people that own these properties or the namesakes of these things.
Yeah,
practices.
I thought about that, but I mean, they have to have permission to film there. So if they're filming there shouldn't be any legal repercussions. But maybe they just, I don't know. Maybe they just wanted to
you like, everyone thinks something's a good idea until, you get a backlash somewhere.
True.
And then people start putting their fingers on things like, well, what about this? What about that? Who was in charge here? Who was in charge there? Politics kicks in, they're just like, all right, let's just do it this way.
Well, stay tuned for the deep dive on MTV's Fear. No, not really. But yeah, it's Eastern State Penitentiary shows up on just about any show that does any kind of paranormal investigation. I think Most Haunted, the English show, they came as well. I think they did like a full like live investigation or something, and I haven't seen that one. But one of the other notable hauntings, aside from the Al Capone incident, is the locksmith. I could never get the guy's name. I looked at a few sources. I never got the guy's name, but it's consistent that this locksmith who worked in the prison, this is somewhat modern day. I want to say it was in the late 90s.
Well, yeah, he was removing the doors for the filming of the movie 12 Monkeys.
Okay.
So that's why he was there, and I actually saw his name one time in like one of the first documentaries or documentary shows that I saw.
Okay.
And yeah,
I guess it's irrelevant, but the point is that the story always stays the same. But when he was trying to remove one of these doors, he was looking through the door from the outside, because all the cells have like this outside little area where all the prisoners could have their like 1 hour a day workout time. And there's this, metal door, and you could look into the building. So he was looking into the building, trying to get this lock off so they could remove this door for the filming, like you said. And all of a sudden he saw dozens of pairs of red eyes staring back at him.
Yeah, and the story kind of changed a little bit over time that I heard, though. He eventually said that a force held him up against a wall.
I've not heard that version.
That's the newer version that has been popularly talked about on different shows, different other podcasts too. But the story did change just a little bit. But the eyes, that's been a part of it since the beginning.
Well, the eyes, and then you find out later that the site where this particular door that he was trying to remove was the spot where an inmate had bludgeoned a guard to death back in the 30s. And that's, fact. They know exactly where it happened, and it was at this door, which is interesting. I mean, not that he would have known this. He's just there doing his job. But an unknown and compelling force, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think, too, one of the parts of the stories that I heard too, like his son was actually working with him, and on that day he couldn't come, so he was going to that one door and he was removing it for the filming, and that's when it happened, and oh man, like if we saw that there, I don't know how different it would have an experience it would have been, but.
Probably one of the eeriest stories told about the old deteriorating landmark centers around the terrifying experience of a locksmith who was called in to work on several locks inside the prison.
When the prison became a historical location, they started doing ghost tours right before Halloween. And a locksmith was called in to work on a couple of the older locks just to facilitate the tour. As the gentleman was working on the locks, he looked down the hall and he saw a person standing there watching him. He had that feeling that somebody or something was watching him. And as he looked at this figure, he noticed that it started to kind of fade. It was solid as you or I, and then it would just kind of turn into like a smoke or just a kind of an outline of a person. And as he watched, he noticed that this smoke started to move down the hall towards him. And he sat there in kind of a stunned silence watching this smoke just kind of creep down the hall, and right before it reached him, it shot up into the ceiling. The locksmith looked up, kind of expecting probably to see an apparition or what have you, or at least to see where the smoke had gone. And instead he saw numerous glowing cat eyes that were looking down at him, blinking. And in a maniacal voice he heard the words, "We're watching you."
Can you imagine you're there, you're just a locksmith, you're like, I just take doors off, I'm going to get this off. And then
why are you throwing shade on locksmiths?
Well, I'm just saying I believe them to be hey, fuck you, man. Hey, fuck you.
So the encounter with the red eyes, that's really an isolated incident as far as the experiences go at Eastern State Penitentiary. However, folks reporting being touched is also very common. It appears in almost all of the stories you see on any of these paranormal shows. And then there's the third iteration of these sightings where folks encounter shadow people.
Others have reported seeing human shadows disappearing into walls of solid stone, while others have encountered a vaguely humanoid specter which is said to exude a profound loathing from somewhere inside its wisp-like form. Other volunteers working in the 6th block have reported seeing ghostly figures darting back and forth across corridors and disappearing into rooms. In each instance, no one has been able to identify the source of the strange noises or the wraith-like visitors.
Without a doubt, the Eastern State Penitentiary is haunted. There were evil men placed in this prison to keep them away from humanity, and that evil still exists there today. Only now it's just waiting in the shadows, waiting for that unsuspecting visitor to get too close, to finally make it or exact its revenge.
We've always heard that Eastern State is haunted, and it's hard not to walk around here and feel that people just left or that there's something happening behind you. But then you look around and you see the way the building's deteriorating, and it's this lost world of just crumbling walls and skylights throwing the light down, or moonlight at night. And it's very, very spooky. You have to believe that if there are ghosts anywhere, they would be here, because there were so many thousands and thousands of people who lived out the end of their life in this building trying to get out and not able to do it.
The numerous paranormal events encountered by visitors and staff, coupled with the documented incidents reported by ghost investigators at the Eastern State Penitentiary, are proof that sometimes, when a prison is abandoned, the spirits of the men and women who died there linger behind. What lurks in the shadows behind the walls of the old Eastern State Penitentiary? No one knows for sure, but one irrefutable fact seems to go unquestioned. When the prison is silent, and the only noise that can be heard is the howl of the wind through the halls or the groan of a cell door moving by itself, the prison's horrible past creeps out and mingles with the present.
Eastern State Penitentiary is just a difficult place to be at night. It's creepy, and we generally keep out of here after sunset.
And for that, I'm going to turn it over to Ken.
Okay, so we went in with that group, and part of the stipulation of going in was that we got to go our own way. It was me, my older brother Chris, it was you, it was your brother, and then our cousin, and our cousin Ed, and we started off in cell block 12, and we had this guide who just basically took us, basically like, all right, where do you want to go next? All right, I'll take you over, and I'll let you kind of just go in the cell block and do what you're here to do. So we we started the night at cell block 12 because it recently, I think, had become uncondemned because it was condemned for so long, and
right.
They were finally letting people have access back in within like the last few years. And when that happened, Ghost Adventures went, and a bunch of different people, they're like, all right, we can go. Ghost Hunters.
They had just repaired the roofs.
Okay.
That's what had happened. Yeah, there was a big construction project where they were like shoring up the roofs again because that's what was collapsing.
Okay, fair enough. So yeah, so they repaired the damage, so it was safe to go in there again. And it wasn't because of people being murdered by spirits or anything like that. But
really, damn.
Hate to break it to you, pal. But so the guide took us over, and she's like, okay, I'll be at the end of the cell block, and I'm sure she worked for so many gung ho ghost hunters. She was actually one of the tour guides for the Ghost Adventures crew. GA.
Yeah, and she told
yeah. So on the way there, she was telling us about Zach Beggins. He found a barber's chair, and was explaining how that was one of the torture methods used. It was a special chair designed to torture inmates, but it was just a barber's chair, and he was like, "This is the chair where they were tortured."
Yeah, he actually he calls it out as the mad chair. This was a specific type of torture that was used on inmates, but the barber chair was moved to one of those cells for one of the art installations that was there. Like, it's a barber chair from the barber shop. I mean, it's TV, I get it, but I remember we were asking her, Ghost Adventures came here, and you could hear her eyes rolling when we asked. She's like, oh. Yeah, they were here.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're getting all these different stories from her as we approached cell block 12. So we wanted to start out there because we heard so much, and it was finally like, oh my god, we get to go in here. So we get in there, and we're standing, in like what would you call it, like a balcony? What would you call the top level, like where, because you can't get on the first level because that's all like collapsed.
It was almost like a loft. I don't know how to describe it. But it was a second level overlooking, and you could overlook the whole. Like there's the two hallway, not even hallways, two like balconies on the side where you could enter, and then you could also see down into the first level. We were on top, and then at the end of this long, the way that all these cell blocks are constructed, the end of the long cell block, there were 3 windows where you could see just light behind because the sky was behind it.
Yeah. So yeah, we're in there, and we're having that moment of like, wow, we're here, and then you look at all of us and you're like, guys, and we kind of look because we're being quiet, and you're like, no one gets to do this, and we're like, I was like, yes, and then you pitched the idea, hey, how about this? Let's all go into our own cell. And just stand in there and be quiet for, I think we said it was something like 10 minutes, 20 minutes. And we start, and a couple minutes in, I hear you call me, and you're like, Kenny, can you get in here? So I rush out from my cell, which was across the balcony. So I had to get over to your side. And you said, you were like, something is touching my arm right now.
Right.
That old chestnut from all the shows. And at the time we had the night vision cameras and all that. And, I visibly saw the goosebumps, on you. Then I'm in there, and I'm recording, and we're like, all right. So then we adjourned. We did that, and we left there for a time, and we went to I want to say it's either cell block 6 or cell block 9, and one of the cooler experiences that I've had, but. She says, she'll get there. She goes, ghost hunters and all the people that come here, they in the employees here, we always urge them to play a game that we play, and it's who can walk to the cell block by themselves, in the dark, and then come back. So we all line up like, fucking, I'm don't want to get on
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia, fucking. Yeah, so we all take turns going up and back, looking at her like, see, fucking, we did it. And then she's like, all right, assholes. So then she goes, and adjourns to the end of the, the outside, and lets us kind of do our thing. So we're walking up down. There's no light. Whatever flashlights we have, we're not really using them. Just because it makes that experience that much more like, being there. You're not watching it on TV. You're there. When in Rome, lights out, So
right.
We're walking up and down, and then you and Chris call me over because I'm like looking at other cell blocks. And at this point, we're not even like really doing the flashlight thing. And then I come over, and you're like, dude, we were walking by this cell, and we heard like sheets rustling, like bed sheets.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Well, you explain on it, and then you go ahead and talk about that a little bit.
If you can envision, or if you know the construction, the way that Eastern State is set up, it's these long hallways with cells that go off, that there's just, little doors that go off to the side. So we're walking past one of them. These are small doors. These rooms are completely abandoned. They're just little cement squares now with one slit in the ceiling called the Eye of God, which is kind of interesting. And there's nothing else in there. There's might be some gravel or whatever. The place is falling apart. It's a ruin. But when you go in and you look, there's really nothing much to it. There's definitely nothing's dressed up, to the exception of Al Capone's cell, which is dressed up to look like the way that it would have looked, during his stay there. But the rest of the, cells are completely in disrepair. There's nothing in there. There's a few maybe rusted bed frames, but that's about it. So Chris and I are walking past, and as we walk past, we hear rustling of sheets. And I look at him, and I was like, "Did you hear that?" And he's like, "Yeah." So we look in, and there's nothing in there. And I mean, there's no rusty bed frame. There's nothing. It's just like some rubble, and like it's just the room. And I look at him, and I was like, all right. So we called you over, and there's a strict policy. You cannot take anything from these rooms. But I took a small stone from the inside of that room. I was like, that was crazy, because it was the sound of rustling. There was nothing else that could have made that noise. It's a very distinct sound. It's, when you ruffle your sheets, you're about to get into bed, and just, you ruffle the covers and you get under it. That was the noise. We both heard the same thing. So we called you over and told you about it. And then something else occurred.
Well, what else occurred?
Well, so we're back in cell block 12. We're lined up again on top of this balcony, because there was something about this cell block. We're standing there, we're looking, and flashlights are off. We're just looking, and now we're looking down this hallway, and there's these 3 long windows. They're vertical, 3 of them lined up, and you can see the night sky behind you. So it is somewhat lit, so you can kind of see behind it. So we're standing there, and I'm not sure which one the first of us noticed. It was you? Okay.
Wasn't me. No, it wasn't me. I think it was Eddie.
Okay.
It was Eddie. And then, so we started seeing it. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Continue.
Okay. So Eddie calls out, and points out what we all, there's, let me say 5 of us there? 5
of us. Yeah.
We all see the shadow of a person walking back and forth across these 3 windows at first. Turn on the light, nothing there. Turn off the light, and we kind of see it again.
And I even walked up with the night vision camera, and it would be there until I got up there, and I'm holding it there, and there's nothing there. And then we go back to where we're all standing, like midway in the cell block. And I think it might have been you who had the idea to, like, all right, let's do this scientifically. No one said anything, but you went to your brother first. Like, all right, you call out where you're seeing this thing, because it started peaking.
Yeah, that was the second thing that happened, because I said to my brother, I was like, John, what are you seeing right now? He's like, there is a person walking by those windows down there. Now there's a good, what would you say, 50 yards between where we were standing and the end of those windows?
Yeah, it's set up. We were standing right at, like, I guess you would call it like a railing, because both the 2 open halls to look down, or open holes to look down to the cell blocks in the bottom.
Yeah.
Oh man, I forgot too. The first thing when we were in there, oh my God, back to when we were first in there, before we went into the cells, when we were standing there going like, no one gets to do this. We're standing over the railing, and I think, I clicked the flashlight down at the bottom, and you were like, you saw that too? And we were seeing the shadows dart on the first floor.
We were seeing shadows. I was seeing stuff here and there. Your brother was seeing stuff in here and there. But I think the more compelling thing about all of this is that the 5 of us are all standing in this one spot. We're all seeing this one thing. And like I was just saying, I say to my brother, John, what are you seeing? He's like, I see someone walking across the across the windows there. And everyone's like, are we all seeing this? Yeah. So we turn around, then we look back, and then I sort of saw it, but I know you, or at least a few others saw that it was like, then it was doing this weird peeking thing. And I kind of saw it where it was like, it was peeking out of the cell real quick. And there's 5 grown men there, and we're looking at this, but it was like, we're all seeing this, right? Like, it was like beyond belief. Like, we weren't scared at the time. It was just like, we're seeing this, right? We were really like in disbelief. We were looking at each other. Are we all seeing this? Yes, we were all seeing this.
And well, then when the peeking thing started happening, we were taking turns calling out, like, all right, left, all right, all right, center. Right. And we were taking turns just to be like, okay, we're seeing it.
Yeah.
And everyone, we're all, okay, yeah, I saw it there where you called it out. I see it. And then when we were getting ready to leave, and I think Chris was like, wait, guys, what did he say? He's like, just for the sake of it, he's like, let's see if it happens again. And we all turned back to look and stopped, and we saw it dash, and then we heard a big bang from one of those cells at the end.
Yeah.
And it was capped off with, all right, we got it.
Yep, we got it. And it was like, we're going to go take a break outside. And, we went out to the front, and we were just like, there wasn't too much conversation because we were just like, that just happened. And it was like, I thought about it for a while after it happened, like weeks and months. And I still think about it now. And it was like, we all really saw that. And then there's part of me is like, okay, how does everyone see that? And then I would go to something like, did they have something set up? Like, was there something? And I was like, no, there couldn't have been, because we would have saw if there was a person or there's something doing something, we would have saw it. There wasn't something behind the windows. There wasn't a person walking back there. We saw something. And
we were thinking too, because we were saying like, okay, maybe it's something with like a helicopter. It's in the city, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're like, maybe there's some light coming through these windows, but it's just
it was a distinct human shape.
Yeah, and it's not like it's a projection of something.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't. We were in all the cells. We took our time. We went into the cells. We went up to the window. We came back. We called it out when all right, I'm seeing it here, and everyone's like, yeah, I'm seeing it there.
And there was another element to it that I think was a large contributing factor was your brother Chris. We were starting to like, let's talk to it. Let's see if we can get it to do something. And we were all just kind of saying like, oh, are you here or whatever? And your brother just blurted out, they're tossing the cells. And when he said that, something happened, and I know this sounds ridiculous, but a mood shifted when he said that. It was almost like it clicked with something there. He was like, they're tossing the cells. And I was like, oh, like even I myself, I was like, oh, that's good. And then I got the goosebumps. My brother gets the goosebumps. I think everyone there got the goosebumps. And it really was this thing that really did change the entire almost like atmosphere of mood that was happening at that moment. And it was really remarkable, I thought. And, we both saw it. And then afterwards, it was something that I thought about a lot. And it's, I still think about it from time to time. It's like, wow, that was really compelling. It was something that was really amazing because the five of us all saw the same thing. I mean, it's undeniable that we saw something. Is it the soul of a human being walking around a prison? I can't say that. But did we all see something that resembled the shape of a human being as a shadow and was walking in this cell? Yeah, that's what we all saw. It's, and it was startling in a good way. It shook things up for me. I was like, wow, okay, well, that's a possibility now. What we just saw, that's a possibility.
When and you were saying like there wasn't much talking when we were like kind of departing after that, and kind of like that was hey man, great, it just kind of And I remember because after that I went to the apartment I used to live at, and there was like a bunch of people there, and I was kind of I went downstairs away from everyone, and I kind of just sat on the couch and was like,
yeah,
like is that it? Like is that like I've never with a group of people I've never experienced anything like that. And we literally watched it. We did as best of a scientific, method as we could to, okay, we're not hallucinating. Mm-hmm. We weren't on the influence
we didn't drink.
Of any kind of,
we weren't allowed.
Yeah.
I think we should have given a little more background, but it was part of a paranormal investigation of the place. And I signed us all up because we wanted to go in there forever. And we had been on the daytime tour, but this was like this nighttime tour. And you were basically allowed to go within reason with what was open wherever you wanted. And we were there for, what was it? 4 or 6 hours? 4?
I think it was 6. I mean, when it comes to drinking, it wasn't like, no, we had dinner beforehand, and we might have had like a beer or something. And like even when I tell the story, I'm like, we had a few. We were kind of like, but no, like, no. I remember the nervousness. We kind of shook out. Remember when we went? We were in death row, and we were expecting like a heaviness and stuff, and there was that strange bird that was just
It was just sitting on just sitting on the bars.
Yeah, and it would let us get right up to it, and it was just kind of like staring at us, like, you don't want any parts of this. Man.
I remember looking. I was like, jailbird. Okay.
Yeah.
It was a strange night.
Yeah.
I mean, just being in a strange night. And, in response to what you were saying about, after it was over, me and my brother showed up separately. So we drove home separately. I live 2 hours from Philly. So and this was at 2:00 in the morning, and I drive home through the Pine Barrens, which is like a straight shot where there's just darkness for a good 45 minutes. And this thing was replaying in my head at, between 2 to 3:30 in the morning when I was driving home. And I was just like, it was just messing with me the whole time. And I was just like, okay, all right. And I don't think I was thinking like, oh, is this it? For me, it was more like, oh, there's more possibilities. Okay. I don't have answers, but I at least get there's more to things, it wasn't anything definite.
Yeah. Well, when I meant that it? I meant was that the experience that everyone talks about? Was that did I just have it? Cause I wasn't scared.
No,
we weren't scared. It was just no, we're observing something.
Because it was like we were just saying, it was almost disbelief for a while. Because I was like, are we really seeing this? And I was like I just had to keep checking. I was like, yeah, we're all seeing this. And it was, it's what happened.
I want to anytime I tell that story too, reliving it, it's still even it's so fresh in my head, and just the bang at the end of it, let's see if something, and then you just start the doom or whatever it was, like a rock being thrown or something.
It sounded like someone slamming one of those doors.
It was loud. It was loud, and it was just all right, yeah, and no one's there. We were there. We were down there. We keep moving back and forth to kind of and at first, I remember we wanted to just stay here and observe as long as we could, but I had to go by the window. I had to go see if something was going to pass through me or touch me or anything.
Right, and also, even to for the debunking aspect, if there was somebody down there, they were trapped. If we walked towards them and wanted to see if they had somebody set up, let's say, there's nowhere for them to go. So if we went down there and looked into the cell and you looked down by the windows, you would have saw somebody. It's a prison. There's nowhere else for them to go.
Well, and when the peaking started, dude, the height itself wasn't I'm 6 foot 1. Where we were seeing the peaking was up high towards mid height of the windows. There's not an NBA player hiding in there, peeking out of windows.
There was a playful aspect to it, which was also something that's still a little unsettling. And then talking about it now, I'm getting chills. It felt like there was something intelligent messing with us. That's what it felt like.
Yeah, and that's one of the scarier things. We talked about this in the introductory episode, where we're the intelligent thing. It's or the residual thing. I can wrap my head around that. That is one of the most believable things for ghosts for me.
Right.
Is that something is repeating? It's just something's happening, and it's kind of the most sustainable thing that you can get repeating. But if something's intelligent, it knows you're there. It's interacting with you in a way that's almost like, can you see me? Can you see me?
Right.
And then maybe it's oh my God, they see me.
Sure.
And I don't know. It kind of wanted us to either stay or leave with that bang and that question of, all right, let's see if it happens again.
Then there was another aspect to it that I've kind of thought about over the years, where was it something intelligent, or was this residual kind of prison guard kind of energy, where the back and forth and the pacing and then the peeking, it would peek into cells. I kind of got that idea. Is this some kind of, you know what I mean? How often, how many times did a guard walk past those windows?
Yeah. And
countless times, right?
Yeah. And
so
if why are we out of the cells? Why are we walking around when?
Right. I mean, and even if it isn't right. And that's what I'm saying. Even if this is something intelligent, if this is just a residual haunting kind of thing, is it the residual energy of the prison guard or prison guards who had walked past that window thousands and thousands of times? You know what I mean? That's something that I considered too.
Ghostly encounters are not limited to the prison building alone. The ghost of a prison guard has been observed numerous times in one of the prison's guard towers. What did the guard witness in the courtyard that tethers his spirit to the prison even in death? No one knows for sure.
One of the towers, a guard is seen to keep watch on an empty prison. Why a prison guard would want to be there after they've passed on to the other side, I don't know. But who knows the horrors that this particular guard has seen during his time at the prison. And he's still said to keep watch from his guard tower, watch the inner courtyard of the prison.
And so, and a lot of times too, some of these,
yeah,
some of these residual haunts, you'll see them and they'll be taller and like it'll be an exaggerated kind of shape and like the peaking thing, man. Like what stuck with me or stayed with me was the height when it was doing the peaking thing in the windows, like it was like in front of them. And I remember we were like, "There's no way there's someone outside."
Yeah, because they're on the second floor. And I think that's another interesting aspect about this place. Is Eastern State Penitentiary haunted? I mean, I think so, but more importantly, I think it's haunting. Because when you leave the place is when it really starts to mess with you. You become haunted by it. Because even to this day, I still think about, oof, God, that place, people ask me about it. I'm like, that place is scary during the daytime. You don't even need to go at night.
And yeah, like it becomes such a destination, like, they're doing the Halloween season and everything, just because like, I love going there because like, let's see what kind of creative things they can do with it. It's fun to be in there, but like, I just want to be in there. I just want to.
Yeah. And I remember the last time that we went, like, we're enjoying the haunt, we're having a good time, but like every once in a while you just look over your shoulder and you're just like, God, like, are they watching us?
Yeah.
And I feel like, what are they doing in here? Or you just get this sense that like you'll be standing there and like you'll be in the haunt and like, you walk in between like the areas and there's like the empty areas. Oh, walk over here to go through this area, or then the haunt continues over here. So there's like a little bit of walk where there's no setup or anything.
Yeah.
In those little spaces, it's like, ooh, like it's scarier in those places because then you remember where you are. You know what I mean? You have somebody screaming at you with blood all over their face, and like it's like, that's the really unsettling part.
And like all those sounds, like the special effects and like everything, it gets at points it gets really silent, and it's just like, even when you're like you're waiting to get to the next one, like a lot of times it's just like, all right, you're waiting for someone to catch up and you're just in those dark spaces in there, and it's really quiet, especially with so many people. There's so many people there for like the haunt, but you're just like in a space, you're like, there might as well not be anyone around right now. Like you're just experiencing the natural, scary, quiet architecture of the place designed for that isolation, and it hits you.
Yeah, no, it's the place is palpable. There's if anyone who's listening to this, if you have the ability to go, I mean, I know right now isn't very great, but I highly recommend it. Even if you go for the daytime historical tour, it's an incredible place. It's historical, but the place is scary, and it should be experienced if you're into this kind of stuff. And if you're listening to this podcast, you must be. So
well, yeah, and I was saying to you, we were talking about it, but now they're doing a nighttime tour, so like you can go now.
Yeah, I heard about this.
Yeah, and it's like you put the headphones in, and you go at night, so it's like dimmer lights and it's the daytime experience, but it's it's socially distanced, stuff like that, and you actually get that. Ooh, this is what night was like here, man. This is what nighttime was like here.
Yeah, it's a hell of a place. So if you have the chance, take a trip out, check it out, make the trip. So but yeah, I think there it is, Eastern State from our perspective. I mean, there's 1,000 stories from everyone who's gone there, but that's our little slice of it. So
and it was altering. Yeah. It changed validity for me of what I've experienced and just being in there. Like, and to be completely honest, when we were in the women's block and most of the other cell blocks, we didn't have such like a scary vibe as much as like a okay. And then when shit started, like the mood, it changed. It really did in specific places.
Yeah, it was definitely palpable. So I think we can, which will be a staple of all of our episodes from here on out, we can move into the closing statements portion of the program.
My closing statement would be Al Capone. It wasn't the syphilis.
Oh, God. My closing statement could be, oh, man, how do I beat that? I got nothing.
We saw a fucking ghost.
We saw a fucking ghost. Oof. Closing statements would just be...
It was there. It was real.
10 out of 10. I'll give the place a 10 out of 10. 5 stars. 5 stars on Yelp.
5 stars, yeah.
So Ken, tell us, what's our next episode going to focus on?
Well, on the next episode of Other Dangerous Podcast, we're going to explore some personal stories, some submissions we've received from some of the people out there that have been in the same boat as us in their personal lives. And we're going to dive in. We're going to talk a little bit about how we feel about them and kind of explore that.
Some really great submissions, really, honestly. We've some are friends, some are folks that we really don't know, but, you know, swim in the same circles. We've got a few that Ken and I will read aloud, but then we have a few that we need to bring these folks onto the show because they need to tell the story on their own because it's that good. And their personality is so entrenched in the story itself that we're just going to have them on so you can hear it from the horse's mouth.
Hell yeah. Well, this has been Other Dangerous Podcasts. I'm Ken.
I'm Jay.
And stay tuned to more episodes of Other Dangerous Podcasts. As always, have a spooky evening.
Thank you for listening to Other Dangerous Podcasts. Do you have a paranormal story? You can submit it to us at otherdangerouspodcast@gmail.com. And if you'd like to have a short discussion about the paranormal, you can comment on Other Dangerous Podcast on Instagram. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can continue to discuss the other dangers.